Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council. I'll please rise for the prayer. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Amen. We all please salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Martin.
Here.
Counsel Mercia.
Here.
Counsel Milanazzo.
Here.
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Belanger.
Here.
Mayor Elliott.
Here.
That's 9 present.
I'm present. Chair would like to recognize Council Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Darken Chamber for Paul Thompson, a longtime resident of the city of Lowell's Pawtucketville section. Paul honored his country by serving as a United States Marine during the Vietnam War. Throughout his life, Paul was dedicated to serving others in the community and impacted so many around him in a positive way. He was extremely active in the Elks Club and the Knights of Columbus, holding multiple offices at the local and state levels over the years. Paul worked for many years as a court officer in Cambridge and in the Lowell District Court, retiring in 2009. Paul is survived by his beloved wife of 46 years, Nancy Thompson, a son, Paul Thompson, and his daughter, Tina Santos, as well as his 4 grandchildren, Sean, Sarah, Bryce, and Camden. He was a remarkable man. We offer our sympathy to his family, relatives, and many friends, and we offer a moment of silence in Darken Chamber as well to all those who have died since our last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me, Councilor. Can we all please rise?
Thank you.
Can we all please rise for a moment of silence in Darken Chambers? May they rest in peace. First item on the mayor's business tonight is a citation recognizing Crazy Canines as a new business in the city. Hello, Tony.
Hello.
In line with our usual practice, we like to invite our new businesses that have chosen Lowell as their location to open a business, and we want to thank you and welcome to City Council Chamber. And on behalf of the city, I'd like to offer a citation to you and welcome you to the City of Lowell. And the citation reads, "Be it hereby known to all in the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, hereby welcomes Crazy Canines and its owner, Tony Sala, as a new business to make its home on 1088 Gorham Street. The city is honored that your dreams have come to life here in Lowell. The entire City of Lowell extends its deepest wishes to Crazy Canines for success with your unique pet care service business as you offer doggy daycare, dog walking, pet sitting, obedience training, or problem solving. On behalf of myself, members of the City Council, and the City Administration, we welcome you, we congratulate you, and we offer this citation given on this 26th day of August 2014 by myself, Rodney M. Elliott, the Mayor, and the entire City Council. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sarah, thank you.
Tony or Sarah, did you want to say a few words? You're good? Okay. The next business that we would like to recognize is CBC Medical and Walk-In Center. Two people, Ashok Joshi, MD. He's not here. However, his trusted lieutenant, Kumkum Duvali, is here. She is the director of operations, and we'd like to welcome you to the podium and congratulate you and thank you as well for choosing Lowell to expand your business and providing much-needed services to people in the Couple Square area. So on behalf of the city, here's a citation. Be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby welcomes CBC Medical and Walk-In Center and its owner, Ashok Joshi and Kumkum Dwali, to its newest location at 16 Pine Street. Dr. Joshi applies the best practices in medicine to the care of his patients. In 2 decades, he has grown his practice and distinguished himself as a leading primary care provider across the Merrimack Valley community. At his core, he believes that the best way to practice medicine is to combine state-of-the-art knowledge of issues affecting health care with personalized and innovative treatments for his patients. The city is honored that Dr. Joshi has chosen to relocate and keep his practice within the City of Lowell. The entire City of Lowell extends its deepest wishes to CBC Medical and Walk-In Center for continued success with the business and providing quality health care to its patients. Given by myself, the Mayor Rodney M. Elliott, along with my colleagues in government, on this 26th day of August 2014. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Honorable Mayor Elliott, and to all the members of the council and all the entire audience. Dr. Joshi would have loved to have been here tonight were it not for a mandatory meeting at Lowell General, where he has been on staff for over 20 years. He's a known person in the Lowell community as well as the greater Lowell community, and CBC Medical and Walk-In Center is something that we started with about 7 years ago. It was actually in practice already over 20 years ago, but since we acquired it, then we really wanted to find new and improved ways to be able to serve the community. We do welcome both the Cambodian community and the Spanish-speaking population as well, as we have interpreters on staff. We provide a whole roster of services, and if I may just take a quick moment, can I just read some of the list here? We've got in-house lab services, blood work, immunizations, since flu season is imminent now, physical exams, ER follow-ups. Dr. Joshi is boarded in emergency room medicine as well. So what he's done is basically brought emergency room practices, the best of those, into an internal medicine setting. We do EKG testing, nebulizer asthma treatments, wellness, preventative care, workman's comp, and DOT physicals is a newer thing that we've just taken on. And then it's a walk-in center, so we do have minor injury treatments as well, knowing well, in fact, when to triage to Lowell General or other area hospitals. So we're very fortunate, we're very grateful to the Lowell community for welcoming us at 16 Pine Street, and we're in a growth mode. We have really been now also working with some Harvard researchers in looking at other ways, innovative ways, to treat members of the Cambodian population. And there's an ongoing study that Dr. Joshi is a co-PI on as well. So in short, thank you very much to all the members of the Lowell community for welcoming us. It's been a very warm welcome, and we're excited about the growth that's going to be in the coming years. Thank you again.
Thank you again, Mr. Wally. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is the city clerk. We have the minutes of the city council meeting of August 12th. We have minutes from the finance subcommittee of August 19th for acceptance. Move approval by Council Samara, second by Council Rourke. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, moving on to the city auditor portion of the agenda. We have a communication 2009 to 2014 surveillance analysis summary. Discussion on this. I do have some comments, so Mr. Councilor Leahy, could you take the chair?
Chair recognizes Mayor Elliott.
And thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. First, I want to thank the auditor for putting together this report in a timely manner. I appreciate it. I appreciate getting this information, or some of the information that I'm looking for that I had asked back in June. So it is, as far as the auditor's finding about surveillance spending, you know, I think there were many troubling revelations. One of the first most troubling was that some invoices had the subjects of investigations missing and others were blacked out. That's worrisome when I read that in the Lowell Sun, that some of the original invoices were blacked out. To me, it's not legal. You can't do that. And I don't know how that happened, but I think we need to find out, Mr. Manager, how it happened, and that should be investigated. You can't black out original invoices. So the city should have a list of people and what the city paid for to have followed, and why those people were followed. And I think anything less is wrong, and I think we're entitled to that information. I was also dismayed to find out that invoices totaling more than $42,000 in surveillance spending couldn't even be located. So far, more than 25% of recent surveillance spending, we have no paper records. It's embarrassing, it's incomprehensible, and to me, it just doesn't smell right. Third, I think I'm very concerned with the finding that there is no description of $31,000 in surveillance spending in 2010. So for about 20% of the surveillance spending, we don't know what type of surveillance or investigating was done. Every dollar, I've said this, every dollar of taxpayer money spent should be fully accounted for, and the purpose, and I don't understand why we can't identify this. So these different findings, why it's taken so long, it reeks of a cover-up to me, that we don't know who was followed, what they were followed. We have large invoices we can't pinpoint the purpose. So to me, there's still too much secrecy that remains with this spending. I don't know why it's so difficult to identify where the money was spent and for what purpose. We have to account for everything else when you do a purchase order, any other spending, and I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to know what it was for, when it was used, and I guess, again, I understand workers' comp, Mr. Manager, I understand that, but if this should have been detailed, what is the purpose, what's the individual, what's the claim, what are we using it for? So, it makes me suspect there's more cases, and I'm receiving emails, by the way, Mr. Manager, that we're hiring private investigators, like the library assistant's mother, to zoom into people's windows. So, Mr. Manager, I'm seeking questions on a couple of action items for you to do whatever it takes to get a full list of those who were probed using city-funded investigations for the last 6 years, and why were they followed. And if we can't get that information from the law department, then we're going to have to go to the companies themselves to get that information. I think we're entitled to it. I also want to know who blacked out those invoices and why. I want to know whether it was legal or not. Perhaps, we may have to contact the Attorney General to find out if you can. My understanding is you can't. I also want to find out what happened to the missing invoices and make sure we know who was followed with that $42,000 in 2009. I want to know the type of investigating spending that was done with $31,000 that there's no description for. I also want to know whether it was legal to use library state aid to pay for a private investigator. So, Mr. Manager, there's still many more questions about surveillance spending, And I hope you, Mr. Manager, will help provide those answers.
Mr. Manager?
First of all, I've instructed the law department to provide all the information that you've requested. Much of that information that you requested will be provided in the executive session this evening. Some of it because of privacy rules, we couldn't divulge in open session, but the list of names, the reason for their surveillance will be relayed to the entire city council. As far as the other questions about the blacking out, I don't know why I was blacked out. I wasn't here for that, but I certainly will continue to look at those issues, the missing invoices, those other issues. But the vast majority of your questions will be answered in the executive session, I hope. And I just want to assure every one of you is, I'm as transparent as anything, and whatever information that you need, I will always seek to provide to you, and there'll never be any cover-up under my watch.
Okay. Unless these are open cases, this information is public information. If the cases have been settled, then it's my understanding, once the case is settled, any information that has been processed is public information. I can understand if there's an ongoing issue with the workers' comp case, but after that, then this information can be released.
Well, I'm relying on the advice of the city solicitor. Can you just address that issue?
Sure. First of all, any discussions that take place in executive session, even for cases that are closed, there still has to be a decision by the council to conclude that it is in the best interest to release that information and that it won't lead to any further issues. With respect to workers' comp cases in particular, it's not just the active litigation, but also the nature of those cases as well. There's privacy issues, there's medical issues, and there's other reasons why those are generally protected.
Okay, so, but using taxpayer-funded dollars for surveillance, people should be entitled to know who was followed and for what reason, right down to every penny and every hour that it was charged for.
Well, again, that's information that we would divulge in the executive session before the entire council. It's as is indicated even in the auditor's report, with respect to the workers' comp cases, we're talking about a fairly limited number each year. But I can discuss the protocols that the city uses. There are policies and procedures that have been in effect since the beginning, and those are the practices that we have followed.
Okay, I'm looking forward to executive session. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the manager, or maybe to the city solicitor. Does the law department clear all surveillance, any surveillance that's ordered in the city, is that cleared by the law department first?
No. The only surveillance that really runs through the law department per se is surveillance as it pertains to workers' comp cases. And it's something that just to put some sort of historical context in it, years ago, it used to be the practice that somebody from the law department would actually go out and spend half a day doing house checks, bringing a camera, doing surveillance and things of that nature. And that was something that we moved away from and actually began to do it not every day by any means, but in cases where we felt it was warranted. And by we felt, I mean we have a protocol that I'll discuss with you in executive session that we follow. And so that's really how it was done. Other surveillance that took place, there were investigations in the city that took place with other law enforcement agencies. Some of that money was in fact, or some of law department professional funds were in fact utilized for those, but it was not directed by the law department.
Okay. So are you saying that if you were in charge of the Department of Public Works, that you could order surveillance on your own and that you would do that without clearing it through the law department?
Not that I'm aware of. Generally, any time that would have happened, it's something that would have gone through the manager's office, and the manager's office and other departments had worked with other law enforcement agencies on a couple of the bigger cases, and again, some of the law department funds were utilized to fund those investigations, namely the building department as well as a DPW investigation.
So,
But there were others.
okay, so then, are you saying that that what could happen in the past is that there would be, let's stick with the Department of Public Works, that they could have ordered surveillance, that they would have it cleared by the manager, and that the manager would give it the green light, and they would do the surveillance, and the law department would be left out of that huddle, wouldn't be involved in that decision. Is that correct?
No, anytime there would have been surveillance, there would have been a reason for surveillance. So in other words, there would have been some indication of wrongdoing that needed to be examined. And so in that case, a department head would presumably then go to the manager's office, there'd be a discussion about it. At some point in time, the law department may be brought in because there'd be, in the same way that, say, HR might eventually be brought in because of the whatever sort of policies and procedures might be violated and the implications of discipline or termination or things of that nature. And in fact, there had been a number of instances where individuals, employees were in fact terminated as a result of surveillance. And so certainly at some point in time, the law department was a party to that process.
Can you think that of any instances in the past 5 or 6 years when surveillance was ordered, was approved by the city manager, and the law department was not involved and didn't know about it until after the fact? Did that ever happen?
Well, actually, no. The only instance that, bless you, the only instance that I would be aware of is, that was unusual was the way the water department handled instances of surveillance, where it was the department head and another individual who instituted surveillance because there was allegations of wrongdoing with respect to employees, and they did it without the knowledge of the manager or the law department.
But did they go out and engage an outside firm to do that surveillance? Or
No, they did it. They did it themselves.
They used the cameras that existed there.
They
So
they brought cameras in to do it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
which they
that's
apparently
different
owned.
that's different than these outside companies that are brought in specifically to do surveillance.
Yes, I mean, that was just the only instance that I was aware of where
Okay.
it didn't follow that type of process.
Okay, so is it fair to say that just about every single time that surveillance was ordered by an outside company in the past 5 or 6 years, that the city manager's office and the law department would know about it before it was ordered, before the outside firm was engaged?
Yes, I would say that's pretty accurate.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we'll learn the rest in executive session, but my concern with the auditor's report has to do with fiscal year 10. And fiscal year 10, two things that jump out at me is, one is that the amount of money that the city spent with absolute investigations jumps big time in fiscal year 10, and it goes from, say, between 8 and 13,000 for the other 5 years, but in fiscal year 10, it's almost $50,000, and is, I believe, about half of the money that was spent, or nearly half. And also, what the auditor includes is that of that amount spent by absolute investigations, there's over $31,000, which would be over 60% of it, that is left blank, which I guess means that the invoice doesn't have a reason why we were spending that money. Is that, so I guess my question is that something that we're going to learn in executive session, or is that something that the law department has a record of?
Yeah, no, that's separate from the workers' comp issue, and it's something that we can continue to take a look at, although offhand, what I suspect that is, arises from the investigation that was ongoing into the building department, and that was certainly part of what resulted in criminal charges. And as to why it was blank, I don't know if that was due to the ongoing nature of it, and to keep it confidential at the time. I know that, I do recall going back in time that the newspaper, for example, wanted to know the breadth and scope of the surveillance that had taken place, how much there was, how long it was, things of that nature. And I believe at the time that it was determined that none of that was a matter of public record. So that may be it, and we certainly can take a look to see if there's ways in which we can assist in filling in the blanks. We did, and I'll discuss it in executive session, we were able to take a look at the auditor's report, and for many of them, anytime it was something to do with workers' comp, we were able to identify the name. Why some were blacked out and some weren't, I'm not sure, but anyway, we have the names of many of those.
Okay,
The
but
the larger investigations, again, that's a different issue.
okay. I was not here in fiscal year 10, but certainly that over 31,000 that was spent is, that's a lot of money. And I guess, I'm not so sure that I'm satisfied with the answer that it's the building department, because I think there were other invoices during that year that a name was assigned, and it was a person from the building department. So there had to be some reason why certain invoices would have a name on it,
Right.
and other invoices weren't. And so just to say that it was for the building department doesn't seem to satisfy that question.
Right, I don't disagree. Oh, you can hop in there.
Just to clarify, of that 31,000, about half of it, there were names listed. It did not say what the type of investigation was, but I do have the names for executive session for roughly half of the 31,000.
Okay, but in your report, you have it blank. You have it saying
That's
blank.
the blank for the type, that's the column for type of investigation. I was trying to classify whether it was workers' comp, claims, anything like that. Because it was put in professional services, without knowledge of the actual investigation, I had no idea what type of investigation it was.
Okay,
So, but I do have, like I said, for the executive session, a few of the invoices did have names on them.
okay. About half of that money?
About half the money, yeah.
And what about the other half? You just,
Those had no subject whatsoever on the invoice.
okay. Okay, I'll wait for the executive session. Thank you.
Mayor Elliott?
Well, Councilor Kenny asked some of the other questions that I was going to, particularly for the 42 and the 31,000 that have expenditures, but there's no purpose. How can that be approved? How can anyone approve an expenditure? To me, if you're going to have a PR, a procurement, a PO, you have to state the purpose, the intended purpose, specifically, down to the penny. Why, have you ever, I mean, to me, that's not right. That should not have been approved. It's illegal under the procurement regulations, and it just doesn't make any sense that some of the 31,000 has names, and then the others are missing. That's what we want to get down to, and that's part of why we should find out and why we need to understand what would that, I mean, are we talking 16,000 now of that we have no idea? We just spent 16,000, we had people followed, and we don't have any idea what that was for. That's troubling, and again, it's wrong. Of the 42,000, the prior year, 2009, do we have the purpose for $42,000 of expenditures?
The only thing I had on that was what was entered into Munis, which, as I said before, there's not a lot of information that is entered into Munis. I will just clarify, as far as those invoices go, it wasn't that we found the box of 2009 invoices and just those invoices were missing. They couldn't find the entire box, so we couldn't find any of the 2009 invoices across the board, not just the surveillance. What I was told was that all of those old years are up in the attic, which at some point boxes were shifted around. He dug around up in there most of the day trying to find it. He found every year around there, but could not find that one year. So we're not sure what happened to those boxes, if they are just hidden, if they, behind other boxes, not hidden, I don't want to say it that way, but if, they just kind of got moved to a different spot because he had all the other years lined up, or, what happened to them. But it's the entire year, not just the surveillance invoices that are missing.
We're missing a whole year of invoices. That's just unbelievable. That just makes... Okay, so we're not going to ever get that information.
Unless the departments, in some instances, the departments keep copies of the invoices. We always get the original, but some of them will keep copies. So if the department has the copies, we might be able to get it from them. But as far as the original goes, outside of going back to the vendor.
Well, that validates the fact that we're going to have to go to these private companies, because we need to get to the bottom of this. Do we have any idea who blacked out those names? Through you, Mr. Vice Mayor, Mr. Manager, to the solicitor, who blocked those names out, blacked them out?
Yeah, that wasn't necessarily an issue I was looking at, but it's my understanding that when workers' comp is processing some of these, that they remove the names. These are all active employees, and so I think the steps might have been taken just to make sure that if there is ongoing issues with a particular employee, that the information remains confidential.
On original documents?
I have no idea how it was done. That's just my understanding of how bills were processed, some of them. I have no idea if it was original documents or not original documents.
Is there any record of original documents?
I mean, I certainly can look into it, and I will look into it, but...
Well, isn't that part of the report? We wanted the information, and now you're going to go back to determine...
No, I mean, I wasn't looking at the issue of blacking things out. I was responding to the questions that you raised, and I think that the questions that you raised have been fully answered in the report that we can discuss in the executive session. By the same token, if there's more information that is warranted and needed, we're more than happy to look for that.
I thought I was clear that we wanted to know the names of those individuals that were followed, and if those original documents are blacked out, how are we going to find that out?
We've provided the names of individuals that we in the law department had used surveillance on with respect to workers' comp cases. We don't have, nor have we ever had, for example, names of individuals involved in other investigations conclusively. So while some of those names may come to us because the employee may face termination or discipline in some other manner, we don't necessarily, like, for example, there was an investigation into the DPW. I don't have them. I don't believe anybody in the law department has names of individuals that were followed. It was the police department, Inspector General's office, and I don't know if there was another agency involved in those. But those also were, again, I think the council was aware that there were several serious issues in the city that needed to be addressed, and they were addressed, and part of the means of addressing them was, in fact, the use of surveillance, and it was done with the cooperation and really oversight of different law enforcement agencies. Sometimes those law enforcement agencies were the FBI, some of them were the Inspector General's office, and sometimes it was a combination of the two.
Well, I'm just talking about city funded, that's all. I don't want to hear about the FBI. I understand that. That's on their own dime. I want to know what city funds were used to follow people, that's all. And you just told Councilor Kennedy that the law department was the only one that would order those.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that we would order them.
Well, who else would order it? Who else would authorize spending of those funds? That's what I want to know.
To recap, the only surveillance that is done that the law department is intimately involved in would be surveillance with respect to workers' comp cases. And in most of those instances, if not all, we would notify the manager's office that information came to light and this is what we were going to be doing. But as far as other investigations that took place, I believe the question was whether if at some point in time we were involved in it or if we would be involved in it as it was unfolding along with the manager's office. And what I indicated is that was accurate, but that does not mean that we ordered it or were directing it. And if that's the question, the answer is no to both of those with respect to criminal investigations.
Should we
Thank you.
take a motion to continue this in executive session then?
That's fine. I think we'll have Mr. Manager.
Sure, Mr. Manager?
But you don't have all the names because they don't exist. That record doesn't exist of all the names. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
So I'll make a motion by Mayor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Kennedy to continue this in executive section. Roll call.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Rourke.
Yes.
Counselor Samaras.
Yes.
Counselor Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Mayor Elliott?
Next item on the agenda is unfinished business. We have an order of taking an acceptance of Southridge Circle. That we've already had the second reading, so this just requires a roll call. Motion to approve by Council Mercia, second by Council Milonazo. Discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Rourke. Counselor Samaras.
Yes.
Counselor Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Yes. Motion carries. Being after 7 o'clock, we have several public hearings. The first one is a general public hearing. It's an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 272 entitled Water Sewers. It's pretty lengthy. Entertain a motion to waive the full reading by Council Belanger, seconded by Council Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second reading by title, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, City of Lowell, and City Council is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 272 entitled Water Sewer. There were some changes to this. One change, Mr. Manager, do you want to explain or update the council on the changes?
The one change was as far as the statute of limitations on payment of water. It's set in this ordinance at 3 years. The original thought was 2 years, but 3 years after consideration seemed a more reasonable amount of time for a statute of limitations. So we can only go back 3 years in payment of overdue water.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know there's a public hearing on this, but I'd like a little bit of a clarification. So if somebody received estimated bills for 9 years, are we saying that we will go over just 3 years and forgive the other, 6 years? And we will retool the 3 years to see what would be fair and adequate?
Yes,
Mr.
exactly.
And I'm just saying for the record that there are an outstanding number of people that have high exorbitant bills with estimates going back 3 years, 5 years, 9 years. There are people, as to a couple here, $52,000. We could not do anything beforehand until this ordinance came before us, which it's here now. We're amending it. We're having a public hearing. And then if the good Lord says it'll pass and we support that, then we will look at the individual bills. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. If there are no other questions on the change, I will now open this portion of the public hearing for those that are wishing to speak in favor. Those wishing to speak in favor? Those wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Now open up that portion of the public hearing for those wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What is the wish of the body? Councilor Leahy?
I had a question through you to the manager. So some of the cases we heard here where someone purchased a house, thought everything was paid up in full, and then they got a bill. And it goes back more than 3 years. That case will still be heard, and
Absolutely, it will be.
and there's a good chance that they may not have to pay anything, right?
There's an excellent
Because if
chance.
they feel or can prove that in good faith they were paid up to date, and then actual change or reader meter was done, I would think they have a good case not to pay anything, right?
I think they would too.
Okay, all right. So, but as far as the change goes, it just goes back to 3 years that
Yeah.
they're liable.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Milanazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. On page 2, we talk about the 3-member board, and it's a resident of the city who's not an employee, the executive director of the regional water plant, or designee and commissioner of public works. And then it goes on to say there's a municipal hearing officer. Is that hearing officer, Mr. Manager, in addition to those 3 individuals? And who may that be? Who might that be?
Right now, it's Ed Amachek, who does the parking hearings. The reason we put in this is that when this issue first came up, there was an issue about a backlog in hearings. And so what we decided, even though that backlog has been addressed, if for some reason or another in the future there was a backlog, which we don't expect it to be, at least we have a fallback position that we can send those hearings to the municipal hearing officer, so there won't be an inordinate amount of time that people have to wait to get a hearing.
Okay. And then the final decision rests with the hearing officer?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion on the amendment to this ordinance? Entertain a motion to approve by,
Yeah, move approval.
move approval by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Martin. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
9 yeas. Motion passes, ordinance is adopted. Moving on to the next general public hearing. It's an ordinance to create a new position and salary for 1 outreach worker in the health department. This is grant funded. I entertain a motion to waive the full reading by Council Martin, second by Council Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The second reading is by title, Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the City of Lowell and City Council. It's an ordinance creating 1 new position and salary for outreach worker at the health department. Now open up this portion of the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. Those wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Now open up this portion of the public hearing for those wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition? Anyone in opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed as well. What is the wish of the body? Council Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Singleton is here from the Department of Health. Could you just come up and do a brief explanation of what the position is and what the position entitles, please?
Mr. Singleton or Mr. Manager?
Basically, if you remember, we, from Lowell General Hospital, we received a grant to deal with these synthetic drugs. They're being sold in variety stores across the city, and they are a public health issue. So we got this grant from Lowell General Hospital, and we're going to use that grant to hire this outreach worker to go out and try and rid these establishments of those synthetic drugs, but also there's going to be additional duties that Mr. Singleton can inform you about above and beyond the synthetic drug issue.
Yes, sir. We have two epidemics going on at the moment. One we have a grant for the last 7 years, which is the opioids, the heroin, that type of thing. This one, we never had any money to really do the education and do the prevention that is so desperately needed for the mollies, the ecstasies, the bath salts, the synthetic marijuana. And a lot of these don't have antidotes like Narcan. And furthermore, they can cause permanent brain damage. They're extremely dangerous, but a lot of the youth in particular think they're safe. For whatever reason. So we have worked with the school system. We're going to do a major program of education and also work with the University of Massachusetts and Middlesex Community College because of these techno raves that go on with the music and the like. So there's a whole, as you followed, was it last month, TD Garden had 50 ambulances. That we don't want that at the Songus Arena if we can avoid it. So that's what this program's about. It's a 3-year grant with renewable possibilities if we show success from the hospital.
Thank you. Council Rourke?
Oh, great, thank you.
All set. Further questions? Further discussion? Entertained to move approval by Councilor Belanger, second by Councilor Kennedy. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras. Yes. Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. The ordinance is adopted. Next public hearing is a utility public hearing for Comcast of Southern New England, request underground conduit at 75 Arcan Drive. Entertain a motion to waive the full reading by Council Belanger, seconded by Council Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second reading by title. That was a second reading, but second reading by title, Comcast of Southern New England requests underground conduit at 75 Arcan Drive. And now open up this portion of the hearing for those wishing to speak in favor.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Tim Broderick. I'm with Comcast, 55 Concord Street in North Reading. And the petition this evening is a request to provide service to 75 Arcan Drive by doing the following. Intercepting an existing conduit on Arcan Drive, placing a new vault in the sidewalk, and then from that vault, we'll trench approximately 100 feet to the building to provide service to 75 Arcan Drive.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Questions? Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this ordinance or this request? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in, we'll now open this portion of the public hearing for those wishing to speak in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed as well. Motion to refer this to the wire inspector report and recommendation by Council Kennedy, second by Council Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next section of the agenda, section 7.1, communications from the city manager. Motion, responses. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak about A, which is the meters on primary day, and it's good to see from Etta from the election office that they will be putting green bags marked voter parking only as opposed to the orange bags that say no parking. So these will be green bags stating voter parking only. The Lowell police officer assigned to the polling station will monitor the spaces throughout the day and ensure motorists using that space for the particular marked purpose. And so that'll be fine. The motion response C, Tyler Park trees. I like to take credit for it, but it's Councilor Leahy who has that motion, so I would like to clarify that for him. Motion D, the berm on the properties affected by the washout on Burnham Road. I'm very happy to see that the city engineer, Lisa DeMayo, informed the manager's office that the engineer will conduct a field visit and inspect the properties to determine the course of action for each parcel. The list will be then given to the Public Works in order to make the recommended repairs. I'm very thrilled about that. It's tough that properties are at a premium today, but you don't want to see them being washed down into the river. So I'm very happy to see that we could save that. So thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, while we're discussing, since Councilor Mercy brought up A, which was meters, do you think that we could get a report for the next council meeting from the parking department as to the number of meters that were lost when we went with two-way traffic downtown, and what the revenue was from those meters in the past year? That, I just think that would be good information to have.
Mr. Manager?
We'll give you a formal report on it, but my crack engineer is signaling 4 meters were taken from downtown. But we'll get you the revenue estimates also in the report.
Okay. It seems to me that it would be more than 4, but if it's 4, then that's good. But it seems like it's more than that. And so thank you for that. It'll be good to get that. And then on B, this report is a good report, but I think that part of the motion was that there be a focus on who authors the RFP and who provides input. And the gist of it was that if the department engages a private company to write the RFP and the specifications for the RFP, then it seems to me that it's not correct for that company to then be able to bid and to ultimately win the project. So that if Watermark Environmental, for instance, were to help with authoring the RFP, I think that would be fine, as long as they don't bid. But do you see where and that was a big part of the motion, and that doesn't seem to be addressed here. I think that the recommendations are good ones, and I think that Watermark Environmental did a good job, as did Mr. Vaughn, the city procurement officer. But that part of the motion was a major part of it, and that doesn't seem to be addressed here. And that was my concern in filing the motion in the first place.
Mr. Manager?
Well, I do understand your concern about the specifications, and although it may not be addressed in a sentence here in the report, it certainly is very, very important to me, and I understand that we're not going to just take carte blanche, a set of specifications from an engineering firm, and then hire that engineering firm to do the work.
Right.
We're going to have it reviewed by independent people to make sure that it's fair and reasonable under the circumstances. So
Okay.
it will not be an engineering firm giving us the specifications that only they can bid upon. You can rest assured that will never happen.
Okay.
And I understand your concern, and that is important to me also.
Okay. Thank you.
All set, Councilor. Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to comment on motion response F as to the education cost of newcomers to the Lowell Public Schools. And I want to thank Superintendent of Schools, Gene Franco, for this report. But frankly, these numbers are frightening. They're very concerning to me, seeing the actual breakdown that we're expecting 4,000 newcomers to the Lowell Public School system this year that are not English-speaking students, and that they cost $6,000 over and above what it costs to educate, I guess, a everyday student, if you will. We are only reimbursed from Title III grant funding $175 per student on a $6,000 expense. This, to me, is staggering. Who is going to pay for this? With 4,000 newcomers that are not English-speaking students, this is a serious burden on our school system. And I'm concerned as to the next step. What are we going to do? I mean, I foresee the school department coming to us for FY16 looking for more money, and they're not going to be wrong. But I am certainly not going to put this on the backs of the taxpayers of Lowell to pay for this. These students are coming from all over the world, quite frankly, and I understand we're a city. I understand that, and there's no denying a child an education. But nonetheless, this comes at a serious cost, and someone owes us money, the way I look at it. So, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager, what is our next step here? Do we go to Congresswoman Tsongas, the delegation? Who are we leaning on at this point for reimbursement for some of this money? I don't know where to go, but
Mr. Manager.
Well, certainly, the Chapter 70 funds that we receive from the state are predicated upon the population, the number of students that we have in our school system. So if we get an additional 250 students, then that should be reflected in the Chapter 70 funding. And that's what we will impress upon the state delegation, to keep a watchful eye on our Chapter 70 money to make sure that it includes increase in student population in the school system.
have they been allocating previous years? Have they been upping the Chapter 70 money to accommodate for these newcomers? Has it been in sync, so to speak? Where
I can't certify that it's been in sync, but I know just this past fiscal year, we received probably $5 million additional dollars in Chapter 70 funding from the state. So we do keep increasing our Chapter 70 funding.
Okay.
But I mean, we you know, one thing is it's always a struggle in the legislature to make sure they don't change the formula, because the current formula benefits inner cities like the city of Lowell with the recognition of newcomer students and immigrant populations. So I will just talk to the delegation and make sure that they keep a watchful eye on the formula that benefits the city of Lowell.
Okay, well, okay, according to this report, there's no mention of that, and it's staggering to me and concerning. And I will follow up with a conversation with the superintendent and see where this goes. But, you know, if it's that easy, then that's great, that the state chapter will increase and will be reimbursed. But it needs to come from somewhere, that's for sure, besides the homeowners of Lowell. So thank you, Mr. Manager. I'll follow up with a phone call to the superintendent and get an update. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. I mean, it's not that, I mean, the manager's right, it is through state funding, but it's, you know, the cost to educate through ELL is significant, because they have, in most cases, they have to go from a phase 1 through a phase 6 education process, and that requires more classroom, more tutors, more time in the classroom, more teachers. So there are costs, and I do think that's something the legislature has to take a look at in the funding formula, and that, you know, how that applies to cities like Lowell. Council Malinazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too appreciate the response that we got from Superintendent Franco. I'm just wondering, based upon the numbers that are in here, where we get $701,000 in Title III money, yet it costs $1,350,000 to educate the newcomers, does it make sense to refer this report to the mayor had set up a joint subcommittee, if you will, of the school committee and the city council, whether or not it belongs there or back at the finance subcommittee. You know, again, it's up to the board, but I think to keep our focus on this, in light of the fact that we're going to be getting together with the school committee to put together next year's budget, I think it's something, and to meet the costs for FY15. It's very important that we all meet and try to get on the same page as to how best to put this together. So I would move that we refer to a joint meeting of the school committee, subcommittee, and the educational subcommittee of the city council and the school committee.
Okay, motion by Councilman Malinazzo to refer that to the education, or the joint subcommittee by second. Council Samaras says, second by Council Samaras. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Mr. Clerk, do you know what that subcommittee is? It's a joint, that is on municipal facilities, but I think we can still take it up.
Educational partnership.
Okay.
Educational partnership with a correlating school committee, subcommittee.
Correct. Yes. Okay. If we could. Thank you.
Further discussion on motion responses. Council Leahy.
Thank you. I had a question on E, the NL compliance with the flashboards. So I read the report through you to the manager. the agreement that we have with FERC, it says in the report that we really have no supervisory or authority over what they do to the dam. They just kind of agree to build the dam every year.
No, it's a federal regulatory oversight. We don't really have any oversight on the dam, but Lisa DeMayo was able to go out and do an investigation on her own relative to the placement of the flash pins and whether they were in compliance with the law. She did that on her own.
Yeah.
We actually met with the neighborhood group 2 weeks ago, and we went over this issue with them. I'm not going to say they were satisfied, but I think they understood the issue, and I think they understood the work that the city engineer did relative to the flash pins. But as far as oversight, we have very limited oversight, and I just asked the engineer to answer any questions that you may have about that.
We really have no oversight. It's a completely under the federal license. And one of the things you said as I was walking up here about the agreement we have, there is no agreement between the city and FERC. The FERC licenses a NEL. The city doesn't play any part in it.
Okay. So for years, we've been fighting about the flooding upstream and the concern over the flashboards when they fail or don't fail. So we don't have any say in the flooding upstream, though? Is kind of what I'm hearing, or, I mean, I know we've been fighting about this for years and before I even got on the council, but the thing that irks me is, when you read what information we have, and I understand they say on average 20 inches, but when you look at it and you see in the strongest parts that the steel rods probably are 3 inches to 6 inches apart. That's what people look at and don't understand.
They're more than 3 to 6 inches apart, but
some are 3 inches apart. I can see
the
that
rods
from the road.
themselves are 2 inches.
Right, the rods are
yeah.
2 or 3 inches apart, and that, by what we know with some sort of agreement, they're supposed to be 16 to 20 inches apart, right?
The way FERC had said to me was that 20 inches on average across the whole length of the dam. So in some places, it can be less.
Right.
As long as other places, it's more.
Right, I
And
agree with
that is the case that we're under right now.
Okay.
I divided the length of the dam by 20 inches and
Yeah.
came up, I forget the numbers, of 580.
Yeah, I saw the math there.
So as long as there are fewer pins than that, they have met their standard.
All right. Because I know, the neighborhood groups, I know you met with them, and talking from some of them, I know that, they're not happy. I don't live up at that end of the part of the city, so I'm not really aware of the flooding, but I would imagine that if I lived there, I'd be very interested in this, and it would be annoying to me, so.
Well, my interpretation is, as long as I check with FERC, and FERC has no issues with them, there's nothing else that we can do. They're licensed, they have a federal license with FERC. They set the rules and they do the inspections. If they don't have any issues, I don't have any grounds to give them any violation notices.
All right.
Mr. Manager?
Just seems like it's so blatant, the violations. They make the flashboard stronger where they want to direct the water over. The boards obviously don't fail like they should because, if you look at the river now, I guess they're bent over pretty good, but it takes a while, I've seen that water coming over a foot over the plywood, and it holds up for a week or so. And so I can understand the frustration. And when I saw the new boards put up maybe, 2 months ago, and you could clearly see the pins, it just seemed so obvious to me that somebody should have some authority to tell them that the spacing is not proper and that those boards are obviously going to be stronger and hold back the water. So that's what prompted the motion. You know, and again, I'm coming late to the game. This has been going on for years, and a lot of these councils have dealt with this for a long time. But coming in and seeing that, I just couldn't understand why the pins could be so close at the end and so far apart at the beginning, where obviously the wall doesn't need to be as strong. So, but, you know, if we have no compliance with it, somebody does though, right?
FERC.
Okay, so I guess,
And I have checked with them recently,
yeah.
and they said there are no non-compliance issues.
All right, and who do we deal with them to deal with FERC? Is that a federal, that's something like you contact your congresswoman, or?
Who would
Yes.
contact FERC?
Yeah,
I
probably
think
go
that
to
would
that
be,
office.
yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Manager, do you have something else?
Also, at that meeting with the neighborhood group, upon the motion of Councilor Kennedy, we also discussed drafting an RFP for a possible backwater study that would address that issue about the flooding at Clay Pit Brook. So that's still on the table to be done. Well, we're going to see what the RFP comes in.
Okay.
And then make a determination, but that's relative to that issue about Clay Pit Brook.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilman
Mayor. On item G regarding online payments, let me begin by thanking CFO for providing this very detailed report. I have a question, though, on the payments. I understand that Invoice Cloud gets 40 cents per payment as their fee, which, based upon the numbers that you provided, that would amount to about, I'm going to say $20,000 over 2 fiscal years. Do we pay anything above that, or is there a base or a minimum that we pay the third-party vendor, or does it just come out of the taxpayer paying either the real estate tax or the excise tax?
Mr. Baldwin?
No. So their fees are completely driven on that convenience charge that's charged to the
I think it's 40
bill
cents,
payer.
right, yeah.
So when you make a payment online, you pay an extra 35, 40 cents for the payment, and that goes directly to Invoice Cloud. And that's really their profit model, is by charging the users. That doesn't get added on to the tax bill in any way, and the city doesn't pay anything on top of that. So that's our third-party agreement with them.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it's good to see that it has grown 55% over the 2 fiscal years, and hopefully it will continue, because obviously if it's at 15% in FY13, it will, and it went up from 8% to 15%. Hopefully this fiscal year will continue to grow.
It has, as you mentioned, grown significantly, which has other positive effects. It cuts down traffic in the treasurer's office. It provides ease of paying bills. We're also looking into some other methods of payment that might be able to reach sort of that in-between demographic, some over-the-phone payments, which some folks are more used to paying electricity bills over the phone, who may not be as comfortable paying online. So that's an additional service that we're looking into at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Malinazzo. Councilor Martin?
Thank you. On that same topic, I've had complaints in the past. I think the city offers a service where you can be notified that your bill is due. I get those notices, I think, at least for property taxes. But I don't think we're equipped to send the same notices for motor vehicle excise tax, or at least at one point we weren't. And I think it has something to do with the fact that those invoices come from the state, even though they say City of Lowell on them. So I'm wondering if this new system is going to allow for any better operation of that. People said to me, well, I signed up to get notices of all my bills, and then I got a late fee for my excise tax, and I called and said, where's my notice? Well, we don't do that one. So.
There is an interesting issue here where we do use two separate vendors for, there's Kelly and Ryan, which handles our motor vehicle excise collections, and Invoice Cloud is for real estate, personal property, et cetera, and they do the online bill reminder. We did have a couple of issues in the past where people were getting flooded with emails if they had multiple properties, where we have been able to work with the vendor and consolidate those. If you have a number of properties in the city, you can get one bill reminder for all of them instead of multiple properties. But there are still some bugs that we're working out, sort of that you alluded to there, that it's a new system in the state that we're working with the vendor to try to make improvements. So that's certainly one that we can talk to them about and see if there's any adjustments they can make on their end.
All right. Yeah, I think people that want the service would want it for that too. So to the extent we have the ability to offer it at some point, I think it would be welcome. The other question I had about motor vehicle excise, I thought it all came the same time of the year. But maybe it's not, I mean, I pay mine the same time every year, but is it staggered? Do we stagger the invoicing quarterly? Why is the amounts coming in quarterly if all the bills go out, say, in the first quarter?
Well, that sort of goes to when people are paying it. We do send them all out at one point. There was an issue that's sort of noted in the report that there was one late motor vehicle excise billing in fiscal 14 that affected the collection timeline. But you're right, I guess it sort of goes to behavior of folks, whether they pay it right away or if they pay it late, and then if they pay it after the deadline. That's why those collections are staggered, but it is sent out once a year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion on motion responses? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the motion responses and place on file by Councilor Samara, second by Councilor Rourke. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries.
Your Honor,
Councilor Leahy?
can I ask for a suspension of the rules for a minute, just to address a couple of incidents that came up over the weekend?
Motion by Councilor Leahy to suspend the rules to bring in an item regarding issues that took place this weekend relative to public safety.
Yeah, public safety.
That's a stated purpose. Second by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Through you, the manager. Could we, at the next meeting, I'll put on because our meetings are 2 weeks apart, over the last few days, we had some public safety issues with cars being shot. So the other night, I'm going through the paper online and I'm reading the story about the car with the 6 shots. Then I thought I saw another story with another car. And then there's a guy up in the Highlands. He's upset and he's shooting his gun off in the air. So I wasn't going to ask, but I think we really should probably maybe have send this to public safety and just hear from the chief, because we have to do some sort of a campaign to get more of these guns off the street. I'd like to hear what they're doing about that. We're turning the page here in the city. Previously, the reasoning was it's the bad guys fighting the bad guys. But now, people call me all weekend about this. People are nervous about this. I know the police are out doing a great job, but we need to really sit down and give them the resources that the police department needs. If we have to sacrifice something this year to give them more overtime money, call in whoever they need to call in. But this is really getting out of hand, where people feel that they can get their guns and just shoot them off wherever they want to in the city. So I think this is really needs to be addressed immediately. So I don't know how the council wants to handle it, but
I'm actually meeting with the superintendent of police and Deputy Ryan tomorrow, and this is on my list of things to talk to them about.
okay.
And I've talked to other councilors, and I think it's long overdue that we have an update on that executive session that we had and the recommendations that were made in that executive session to see if the police are following through on what they promised they were going to do in that executive session. So You have my word that I will find out those answers tomorrow, and then hopefully I'll talk to the chairman of Public Safety Subcommittee and schedule a hearing so that we can have the police address those issues and update us on the promises they made 2 months ago in executive session.
Okay, and again, you know, if, I don't want to just throw money at this problem, but we need to put our heads together and come up with some good ideas on how we're gonna curb this. And I know everybody's working hard, there's a lot going on, but we need some help when, as I said, we've turned a new page here in the city, and this is really getting out of hand. So anything we can do, we need to act fast on this.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, as part of that report, the report, could the chief indicate how many guns have been taken off the street through routine traffic stops? I think there was a lot of progress being made, and that seems to be an effective measure throughout, you know, in other communities. That's how they're getting a lot of these illegal guns, and that's the problem. It's illegal guns. Councilor Belanger?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of Council Leahy's motion. You know, we heard the cries of the public from last year's violence alone. This council allocated, you know, cut other things to put 5 more additional police officers on the street, and frankly, we have not gotten the results we wanted. I think it's time we pull in the chief and the deputy and get an update. In executive sessions, they had strategies and haven't quite seen the results there either. So I don't pretend it's easy. But nonetheless, it is time. Things are getting worse out there, and it's becoming almost a nightly thing, and it's got to stop. And we got to do whatever it takes to make this problem go away. So I look forward, Mr. Manager, your conversation with the chief and the deputy, and then we'll organize a public safety subcommittee meeting and get a briefing on this matter, because something's got to give here. It's out of control. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I as well want to echo my colleagues' sentiments when it comes to guns and shootings and random and in cars and going along the connector and someone's from Thorndike Street shooting. It's frightening. It is frightening, and we are fed up with it. So I'm glad that, Mr. Manager, you're going to meet with the chief. We need a follow-up about promises made in executive session that we can't get into, but I heard nothing else, so I'm glad that you're going to follow through on that. I know that the police are not mind readers or clairvoyant to know when the next shots are going to be fired or where they're going to come from, but I have never in the history of my life, which God knows it's been a long, many years, I have never heard of so many gunshots being prevalent throughout the city. And in many sections, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. I know we did everything as a council that we tried that we could do as far as sending letters to the judges. I don't know if attorneys, God forgive me saying it, are watering down charges so that when they get before the judges' hands are tied. So it works both ways. But I think the word shot a gun or you had a gun without a permit, serious consequences should be taking place when this is happening so that people in the downtown or different sections of the city are not getting frightened by it, because it is frightening. It truly is. When you hear one instance, now it's happening all over like it's the normal thing to hear. I don't think it's normal. I think it should be stopped. It's very frightening and frustrating to us that want something done about it. So whatever Councilor Leahy brought up and Councilor Belanger is reiterating, I feel the same way. Absolutely. Something needs to be done to stop this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion, Councilor Leahy.
Just one more comment, too. So Councilor Mercy had made a motion a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, about when someone gets arrested with the gun without a permit, are they doing the time? So with this last incident over the weekend, there must be a way to track this. If this person who shot the gun in the air doesn't have the following permits, then we should be able to watch this and see if he does the mandatory 18 months in jail. And if he's not, then again, on your motion, we can follow up with our legislature and see what's going on, because this is ridiculous. When somebody shows up and they're angry at somebody and they start shooting a gun in the air, I mean, I don't know what's happening here. So you can't really blame the police for that, but we have to do something as a society here, so, thank you.
I agree, Counsel. I think, I think we need to perhaps think about maybe contacting the National League of Cities or the National Conference on Mayors to make this a national effort, because we have the strictest gun laws in the country, and we are still reeling with problems with guns. So I'll bring that in the form of a motion next couple of weeks. So, Mr. Manager, you're going to schedule an executive session to update the council, and then maybe Council Rourke will schedule a public safety subcommittee meeting subsequent to that to get an update and have a full public discussion on that.
I was going to do September 9th, but if you want to kick it out next meeting, it's fine, whatever's easier for.
Okay. All those entertain that as a form of motion by Council Leahy, second by Council Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Next item is a communication to appoint Michael McGovern to the Taxi and Livery Commission. Entertain a motion to approve by Councilor Rourke, second by Councilor Milonazo. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
9 yeas. Moving on to Section 8. It's a vote from the city manager. Vote authorize city manager to apply, accept, and expend funds from Mass Work Infrastructure Program for up to $2 million to build roadways, temporary parking, and associated utilities in the Hamilton Canal District, North Lowell Pawtucket Canal. HCD North. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Mercia, second by Council Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. The second reading is by title. Commonwealth of Massachusetts City Council is a vote authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell, acting through the Department of Planning and Development, to apply for, to accept, and to expend funds from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Mass Works Infrastructure Program through the Executive Office of Housing and Urban Economic Development for up to $2 million to build roadways, temporary parking, and associated utilities in the Hamilton Canal District North, and associated utilities and Hamilton Canal District North of Lowell Pawtucket Canal, HCD North. Discussion? Council Belanger?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is very encouraging. I mean, the Hamilton Canal, it seemed like from '06 to 2010, 11, we saw a lot of progress there, but there seems to be the last 3 years or so a big void where we got nothing but holes in the ground and drawings. So this is encouraging. So I wonder, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager, if you can give us a little briefing, the scope of work here. I mean, this is encouraging. So I'd just like to clarify to the public and those at home as to the scope of this work.
Mr. Manager?
Yes, thank you. We're working currently with a local company to relocate their company, and we want to keep them in Lowell. And we are concentrating on helping them to build a building on what's known as Parcel 17 in the Hamilton Canal. This is right as you come down the connector. It's the parcel next to where they're going to build the Judicial Center. And as an incentive for this company to relocate to Parcel 17, we want to provide access to that parcel and surface parking for that building. So there's actually an entranceway from Dutton Street, and what we're trying to do is apply for this grant so that we can improve that roadway from Dutton Street into Parcel 17. It'll provide great access, and also to provide surface parking, which I believe, Craig, we can provide about 175 parking spots if we get this grant, which is really more than that company needs, but it's great for even future development. So it is an exciting proposal, and we're going to do everything we can to incentivize this company to stay in Lowell, and this is one of the ways that we hope to do it. And then my hope is, with these surface parking spots, once we develop parcel 17, parcel 5 right across the street will be a great, great opportunity, I'm sure, for somebody to develop.
Okay, so without elaborating too much, Mr. Manager, you're saying we're trying to keep a local company in Lowell at this. Is okay, that's great. That is very, very encouraging. I trust you'll get the job done. But nonetheless, getting to this Hamilton Canal project, as you know, as I elaborated earlier, this is behind. Okay, we got 2 buildings, parcels 8 and 9, on the Hamilton Canal project that was supposed to be complete June of 2014. Okay, 2 months ago, we don't even have drawings on them right now. So at some point, we have to bring in our friends from Trinity Financial and see what is going on here. I know they have other projects throughout the Commonwealth, and from what I understand, they're going like gangbusters. But we don't seem to be going at that same pace here in Lowell, and I'd like some answers, quite frankly. So this is great. This is good news to that parcel. They get some activity, and better access, and more parking to make it more viable to get those tenants. But nonetheless, this massive developer here, in my opinion, has not lived up to their obligations. And we'll leave that conversation to a future meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. Further discussion? Roll call. Oh, I'm sorry, motion to approve
So moved.
by Council Kennedy, second by Council Leahy. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yes.
9 yeas, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, under orders from the city manager, we have an order for a 60-day trial. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council Belanger. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second reading by title, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, City of Lowell and City Council, order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, Temporary Traffic Regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. Move to approve by Councilor Samaras, second by Councilor Rourke. Roll call.
Counsel
Excuse
Kennedy.
me, excuse me.
Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the one that says parking prohibited on certain streets at all times, it says Mammoth Road, and it's talking about a northwesterly curb line of Woodward Avenue running northerly at a distance of 50 feet. Is that in front of St. Rita's Church? Because that's what it seems to be to me. And I don't know if it's in front of the church and if we're going to have a problem with funerals and they can't park there. I don't know. Is Lisa DeMayo?
I believe that is from the intersection of Mammoth Road back where, because of the school, between school buses trying to turn and there's that intersection, that's where the lights are set up. I don't believe that's in front of the church. Councilor Rourke?
Yeah, that's correct. I believe it was a 4th Ave where the school was, that turn there.
Right.
Yeah,
4th
right
Ave turns into Woodward, and that's from Woodward back. But I think it's a good point.
I don't want to hurt the church where funeral directors are having a funeral and
We find out about that, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, why don't we just delay this one till the next meeting, and then I'll get the depiction of exactly where
there's
this
not a
will be.
hurry with this,
No.
right?
No.
That's the only one I'm concerned about. I don't know if you want to have a public hearing is scheduled, but eliminate that particular one. We could probably do that.
We'll bring it in at the next meeting, and I'll have a depiction of exactly where it's going to be.
All right, because I just want to, there's a lot of funerals out of that church, and they gather in front to then take off to the cemetery, and I don't want to impede that in any way.
Okay.
If we could just figure that out, I don't know. Thank you.
Okay, so do we want to just, there's one for Newbury Street.
Sure, you can take
Want
the...
to just delay the entire, just delay it for a week, the entire order?
You could do the Hildreth Street and the Newbury Street. I don't have a problem with that. Just remove the Mammoth Road.
Entertain a motion to amend the traffic order, 60-day order, to delay the Mammoth Road
Yes.
Parking prohibition on certain streets at all times by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Milonazo. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Motion to approve the other two parking for handicapped persons, elderly drop-off and stop intersection on Newbury Street by Council Martin, second by Council Leahy. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next order under the city manager, in order to dedicate corner of Jackson and Central Street in honor of Ray and David Robinson. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Samaras, second by Council Rourke. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed. Motion carries. Second reading by title, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, City of Lowell, and City Council order designating the northern corner of the intersection of Jackson and Central Street in the City of Lowell in honor of Ray Robinson and David Robinson. This is, entertain a motion to approve. A public hearing by motion to approve by Councilor Marcia, second by Council Milonazo. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
9 yeas. Moving on to the next item, we have reports. We have Finance Subcommittee report of August 19th. No objection. I'll just give the brief report from up here.
I object.
You object? You want me
Yes.
to come down, Counselor?
Yes.
Okay. Counselor A, can you please take the podium?
Mayor Elliott.
Thank you. So on August 19th, there was a finance subcommittee that was held on Tuesday to discuss the information that came to me regarding free cash issues by the city auditor. So I thought it was important that these issues and how we're trying to address them be discussed and made public as soon as possible. Along with the subcommittee members, Council Kennedy, Council Martin, Council Mercia, and Council Samaras were also in attendance. Auditor Hannah York, financial consultant Bob Healy, and CFO Connor Baldwin were in attendance as well. At the meeting, we were told by the auditor that the former city treasurer failed to borrow $11 million for capital projects that were expended in the last fiscal year. We were also told that a letter about what needed to be done to issue the debt was sent to the treasurer, and only the treasurer sometime in either late February, early March, but apparently that information was not shared and no action was taken. So subsequent to that, meetings were held with the Department of Revenue to bring it to their attention. So as a result, because of the lack of borrowing, there was a $9 million deficit for the general fund projects, $2 million for the enterprise projects. The $9 million, there was also some state aid reimbursement issues of I believe it was 1.5 million or 1.4, Mr. Baldwin, was it 1.5? I know that it brought the deficit down to a 7.5 million, so.
Yeah, sure.
That's right. There was a state aid anticipation note that was in the neighborhood of 1.6 million that reduced the deficit after discussion.
Okay, so what we did learn, there will be an initiative negative free cash figure for the fiscal year that ended June 30th. We learned the city is planning to issue new debt in September 12th, I believe, and then we will seek recertification of free cash from the Department of Revenue. If all goes according to plan, we will have a large positive free cash figure. The auditor doesn't know exactly what that dollar figure is. The auditor, Mr. Healy, and the CFO said steps have been taken to ensure that this problem does not happen again. The subcommittee also discussed, the CFO discussed the Lowell Memorial Auditorium operating deficit and the effect on the general on the general fund. It will not hit against our free cash, but, you know, it was noted that, and the manager is going to try to sit down and work an amendment to the existing contract, which is 5 years. And, because essentially, right now, all of the liability, all the expenses, all the costs fall on the city. So that will be additional, I guess you'll bring that, you know, those discussions and the status of that sometime in the future. Lastly, there was discussion of a free cash, the cash reconciliation issues in the treasurer's office that the auditor identified. She went in and made corrections to reduce that $1 million variance down to around what, 30,000, 3,000. Apparently, those changes were reversed before the treasurers left, so now the auditor is going to go back in and try to correct those, that discrepancy. So that is a report of the Finance Subcommittee to the full City Council. There was one motion. There was a motion that we receive a report from the auditor regarding the free cash issue. So we bring that forward to the full council, that the auditor provide an update on the status of that free cash reconciliation process.
Any further discussion? Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I did attend the meeting, and I do, Mr. Manager, appreciate the work of Mr. Healy and Mr. Baldwin, I think primarily responsible for coming up with a pretty quick solution to a problem that they became aware of in, I think, a short period of time. But I don't think that the meeting was properly called, and I think it's in violation of our rules. I think there are important reasons we have the rules that we do, and it's primarily so that the council, the entire council, and the public has notice of items that are going to be discussed at public meetings. I think that's the main driver of the intent behind the open meeting law, and it's the main driver of the rules that we operate under here. I saw the notice to this meeting. I thought it was very vague. I didn't know what it meant. In fact, when I first got it, I thought it was a mistake. But as from subsequently attending the meeting, I've changed my view. I think the notice was intentionally vague, and I think it was not designed to give proper notice of the issues that were to be discussed, because I think the chairman knew those issues were not properly before the subcommittee. They should have been brought here, and if the council deemed the discussion worthy of reference to the subcommittee, that could have been done and should have been done by the full council. So and when I called the chairman about that, when I called him on it, and I said the meeting I thought was improper, he went to the newspaper and made up some lies about me never calling him back. So I object to that as well. As I said, I do think that the matter was well handled by the manager's office, but I think it's troubling that the person we rely on primarily to enforce the rules of the council and keep the public informed chose not to honor those rules. So that's troubling to me. Nevertheless, I think the solution that the manager's office has come up with is a good one. I would appreciate information from the auditor, I think, coming to the entire council. I think the auditor is entitled to think that things that go to the mayor are going to be communicated to the entire council, but you should know that that did not happen in this case. And so I thought this could have been much better handled. I think the brief involvement of the manager's office is appreciated and was well done and came up with a solution to a difficult problem. Hopefully that works out when we send in the revised free cash certification. But in the future, I think all matters that are going to go to subcommittees should come to this council. That's been our rule. That's Robert's rules. We've operated under that procedure for many years. There was no emergency that needed to be called. If that were the case, we could have called this emergency meeting of the full council. But so I think it's important that the entire council, because when the entire council learns about something, the public learns about something. And if it were that important, the items that were to be discussed at the meeting would have been listed on the agenda for the meeting.
Thank you, Counsel. Any further discussion? Councilor Kennedy and then Mayor Elliott.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the auditor, this will be the last meeting that we're having in August, so that the next meeting will be in September, and we'll be 2 months into the fiscal year. And I think one of the things that I've asked for is that we get a report, say, every 2 weeks on how we're doing with spending as we go along. So should we expect that report at the next meeting?
Yeah, I can send out another budget. Well, I sent one a couple weeks ago for the first fiscal year, yes, but we can, by the next meeting, I'll send out the one through August.
One that would just be for this 2 months, right? For July and for August. That's
Yes, yeah, it's inception, year to date.
Yep.
Thank you. Mayor Elliott.
Thank you. Council Martin can disagree with as he so wishes. This is how he can conduct the way he wants to do business his way. I'm going to conduct it in an open forum and let the people know when I get information, I'm going to bring it to them. I'm not going to get mired down in Robert's rules. Maybe you should read them because it's about facilitating business, not slowing it down. So if you don't want to go to the meetings, Councilor, you don't have to go to the meetings. I'm going to let you know. I posted the information. It was FY14, FY15. That's what we talked about. We spoke about the impact of what's going on in FY14, closing the books. That includes an $11 million free cash or deficit to the general fund is what it is. It's going to result in a negative free cash, but it's closing FY14 that was referred to us, the budget process, by Council Milanazzo, as well as FY15. We did discuss items including the Lowell Memorial Auditorium that was sent to us by Hannah and someone in my office. So, it's more important to me to focus on solving the problems, addressing it, letting the public know, than to get into the nitpicking of who said what when. You maybe you're calling somebody else, Counselor. You've not returned a phone call. You certainly didn't. You certainly didn't call me.
Not personal.
Excuse me.
I just asked that we keep it.
It's not personal. I'm responding to him saying that he placed the phone call that I didn't receive. He had a conversation at the meeting, Counselor. So, it's kind of a waste of time. He wants to have this little discussion. I'm more interested in moving forward, keeping the public informed. No secrecy, let the information out and get it out there in a timely manner. I thought it was a very productive meeting. So you're inconsistent. It was a good meeting, but it wasn't a good meeting. You didn't like the way it was called. So, moving forward, I think we have some good solutions. Moving forward, it's good to get the information. And what are we going to do about it? We have some reports coming as a result of that finance subcommittee. I'm going to continue to call them. You want to attend? Sure, it's up to you. If not, we'll continue to do public, the business in a public forum.
Councilor Mercy.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Let me go back to this meeting a little bit earlier when you, Mr. Vice Mayor, asked to suspend the rules to talk about something that, A, isn't on the agenda. The mayor could have said, it's not on the agenda, we don't have to talk about it. But I don't have a problem with that because I think that what you had to say was probably very important, which it was. And then you went on to make a motion, which again is probably a violation of the open meeting law because the public was, number one, not aware of what you were going to talk about to begin with, and then to make a motion on top of it. So there's a double violation right there that I kept quiet about because I think that, number one, the mayor had a good point to let you suspend the rules to say that very important issue by which you made a motion illegally, but I thought that it was right, of which the person aside of me supported that motion. So I think that the point of this is to inform the public, to try to be responsive to the safety of the people, to let people know openly that there was an $11 million deficit, a blip in the finances whereby we didn't secure funding for a particular deficit of spending, I think it's all he said, she said, this is a nag, that's a... Let's get on with this, and for the public's sake, to maybe there's a meeting that probably shouldn't be called for. Well, then stay home. But the thing is, it's for the public to know what's going on in this city. So I don't want to quibber about it, but I keep quiet because I think this is for the best interest of the people, whether you know, your intention is pure, and I think this is the way that we're supposed to do it. So whether I'm in violation or not, I think it's for the safety of the people, for the information to the people, and it's about the people, and this is why we work here, and it was the intention of the mayor to be informative. I have no problem with that. It was your intention to be informative and to be precise and accountable to the public, and that's what you were, and I have no problem with any of this. So I think we should just move along.
Thank you. Councilor Martin?
Thank you. If the purpose of this meeting was to keep the public informed, it could have easily been done by advertising the reasons for the meeting in the public notice of the meeting. The first time I received any information about this problem was about an hour before the meeting in the email from Mr. Healy. That was the first public communication any of us had. So if I think meetings are being called in violation, I'm going to continue to bring it up. And I think this one clearly was. It didn't have to be. We could be talking about it in more detail tonight.
Thank you. We did get notification through the mail, though, didn't we? I think I did, but Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you. Again, I think it was an important subject to bring forward. I do wish it was brought to the entire city council. We could have called a committee meeting of the whole. I happen to be out of state, didn't see the notice, so I actually wasn't in the city to attend the meeting. I do think it was a blip. I do think that the good work of the finance committee, as well as the auditor and Mr. Healy, we've been able to rectify it, and we'll be able to to deal with it. I can understand Councilor Martin's frustration. I can understand the mayor wanting to get it before a body to discuss it publicly. But again, because I was out of state, I wasn't able to be at the meeting. But if it was called as an emergency meeting of the council of the whole, I would have attended. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
This
Mayor Elliott?
this would not have met the criteria for under the conditions of an emergency meeting. This is ludicrous that we're having this discussion. Council Martin wants to just come off the significance of the issue and get into this personality issue because he has a problem with me. Sad. That's not why we're elected here. We're elected here to do a job and not worry about little squabbles about who posted what. There's no secrecy. In fact, the secrecy was meant to bring to the public through a public meeting, publicly posted with the agenda item. It wasn't specific enough for him. We'll try to be a little bit more specific to satisfy him. But the bottom line is there was a problem. We brought it forward. I'm not going to stick my head in the sand and wait till a more convenient time for Councilor Martin, because we work. There's no set time for meetings. We had an off week. It was an hour-and-a-half meeting. It was the right thing to do. I'd do it again.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Councilor Kennedy?
I'm the quiet one on that subcommittee, but I should say that, I mean, it was an off Tuesday. It could have gone either way. It could have been a meeting of the subcommittee. It could have been a meeting of the entire council. I think that what shouldn't be lost is the good news is that although there was a problem and a mistake was made earlier in the year, that the administration is able to correct that without any harm being done to the city. And I think that's really what the whole meeting was about, and I think that ends up being a good thing. And so that really shouldn't be lost. That's kind of what the whole meeting was about, in my mind.
Thank you. All those in favor of accepting the motion and the report of progress, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.
Moving on to the next item of the agenda, we
Mr. Mayor?
have,
I
Council, you have a
apologize.
subcommittee report?
Yes. I think we can go ahead and schedule the Public Safety Subcommittee for September 9th. I don't think the subject matter discussed would be executive sessions information, so I think we can go ahead and schedule that for September 9th, please. The Public Safety
Okay, and
Subcommittee.
you want to state the purpose?
Yes, with regards to Councilor Leahy's motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's a subcommittee scheduled for that night.
Okay, why don't we work with the clerk and figure that
Thank
out a
you.
little bit later? Okay, any other subcommittee reports? Next, so moving on to item number 10.2, we have the wire inspector. We have the National Grid request for underground electric conduits at Central and Warren Street. Entertain a motion to adopt and accept the accompanying report by Council Belanger, seconded by Council Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. In the opposed, that motion carries. Next item, 10.3, we have another a wire inspector report, National Grid, Verizon, New England, request pole location at 279 Pawtucket Street. We need a motion to adopt and accept the accompanying report by Council Leahy, seconded by Council Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. In the opposed, that motion carries. We have, next item on the agenda is section 11.1. We have petitions. We have claims, 3 for property damage. Entertain a motion to refer to the Law Department for a report and recommendation by Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Milanazzo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. In the opposed, motion carries. Under petitions, we have a miscellaneous petition. Kenneth Harkins, request to address council and thank mayor regarding assistance on 110 Bigelow Street, 160.1 Swan Street, Sampson Connector, and West Lawn Cemetery. Mr. Harkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Ken Harkins, 110 Bigelow Street, and I have to put a different hat on because I'm president of the St. George Greek Orthodox Church. And on behalf of the Greeks, I wish to say thank you for putting up the sign for Mayor Sampson when you did, and I want to thank you for your cooperation in that. And while I'm at it, I want to say thank you to the Water Department. We got a bill for $3,500, and I went over to appeal it. And we're only in church on Sunday. And it was a rather shock when I showed that to the board, but they were very courteous to me over at the Water Department when I went over to ask them what I did with it. And they said, well, you can appeal it, so you don't have to pay it right now. But so I do want to say thank you to them for being courteous. As our employees, I say thank you to them. Now I take that hat off, and we get into my thank you to Ralph Snow and his crew at Department of Public Works when they fixed the street in front of my house. Has been neglected for 20 years probably. It was a no man's land. Ralph put together a crew from the Water Department, which I want to say thank you to take up part of it because part of it was their responsibility, and his crew to put it. But when people look at our, and I say our, because it's our taxpayers, our city employees, you want to criticize them, go out there when it's 90 degrees and do hot top. And it's humid. And take time to say, stand there and feel the heat of that hot top. Or in the middle of the winter when it's freezing and your water pipe breaks in the middle of the street and there's ice flowing down the street from the water, and then you come out and put sanders down and they're out there fixing it. They're cold, but we want our water. So, you know, tip your hat to them, say thank you. And the other thing too is I heard you talk about gunshots in the city. You know, the policemen put their uniform on, and we don't know if they're going to come home, so we should just say thank you to them for defending us. And when the fire department makes a run, it might be a false alarm, but it might be one that hurts someone or someone dies. We should say thank you to them and be glad we have them. You know, when we throw rocks at them or we point fingers, if we point the finger, there's more pointing back at us. So we do need to say thank you to our city workers for what they do. And I want to say thank you to the mayor and City Clerk Mike there, geez, he's got me now. He's going to shoot me. But I can't remember your last name, Mr. Gary. For letting me come back to say thank you to you people. But on that note, I wanted to bring up something that bothers me because it's all tied together there on Industrial Ave, Bigelow Street, and the Woodland Parks condominiums. But many years ago, a few years back, when Mark I wanted to put in a doggy daycare, remember that, Rita? And he said that he dumped all of his containers at night. There was never any left overnight. I say that and I bring it to your attention because he was cited by the Conservation Commission here in Lowell, and they turned it over to the state because he was, his demolition debris was getting into the wetlands. And the distance from here to where the city manager sits is where 160.1 Swan Street is, which is now Ashbury Heights Housing. There was a 9-0 vote here to not build on wetlands. He didn't build on wetlands, he put 4 foot of fill in there. And the Conservation Commission allowed him to do that, even though right next door was Mark I. They couldn't do, they got cited. So that would say that they could build up off of Westview because they can put 4 foot of fill in there and build houses there now, apparently. That's the way it works. If it's in the lower highlands, it has to work in the upper highlands. But I wonder if it is because the builder's name is Manville and the person that signed the permit was Manville. I wonder about that. I don't know. Apparently the city council can take a vote and it means nothing to a commission because I brought that to their attention and I was told that they weren't bound by votes. So they filled in the vernal pools and built. We now have houses there with propane tanks for heat. And nothing said, and Transgas is going to put new tanks in, so I guess we have all kinds of bombs sitting around down in our neighborhood now if anything goes wrong. I mean, it just, I don't know. I remember when I was given the key to the city, I was told, don't get apathetic, be active. And I guess this is part of that pep talk I was given. But I wanted to go on to the West Lawn Cemetery, but I want to say thank you to the city manager for not coming across the table at me for putting the build up on Westview Street. I know how dedicated he is to his neighborhood, like we are. So thank you, Kevin. But on West Lawn, it's weird. When we first started off, we had the 12 inches out in the front of it that we could put flowers or whatever. When they put the front end loader or backhoe down there to dig another hole, another grave, they would run over it. So we asked what we could do, and they said, well, put vases. So we put vases in front of it, so they wouldn't run over the flowers. The vases don't take up to 12 inches. Now they said, well, can we move them to the edge, to the side of it? I said, sure, go ahead, it'll be easier. We moved it to the edge. Well, they did. They set it nicely like we had it on the front. They put it to the side nicely. Now they're saying that it is illegal and they have to be moved. And I said, well, can I put them back in the front where they were? And they said, no, you can't have vases. So if it was good 30 plus years ago, why is it all, and when they have moved it from the front to the side, and now I can't move it back to the front because there's no vases allowed. I don't understand what's going on here. I would like to get some answers because I went over and tried to talk to them. And they said, well, it's in the bylaws. Well, okay. Why were we told we could put vases there when we did? If it was not, if it was in the bylaws, we couldn't do it. Why was the cemetery commission, the manager, the cemetery manager that we had at the time, who's gone now, telling us we could do it, and now it's privatized and everything is being changed to suit the privatization, as what I gather, because it seems that since it's been privatized to Weezer, everything has to be rearranged so he can mow quicker. I want to say thank you for letting him have my time here. I do appreciate it, and I do want to thank you for the job you're doing. I look at your agenda every week, and I see that you do a lot of time here, and you do a lot of homework prior to. I do appreciate that as a taxpayer and as a resident. And I thank you very much for your time here and for a chance to address you. And good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Guess we accept the communication and place on file by by Council Mercia, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And moving on to section number 12, 12.1, first motion of the night, Council Samaras, request city manager update council regarding panhandling ordinance and its enforcement. Seconded by Council Rourke. Council Samaras?
Thank you, Mayor Elliott, and to the city manager. The subject of panhandling has been discussed by this council and previous councils before us. And if you read the paper lately, there's a lot of stories about cases against various communities about litigation against police for, we'll say, abrogating the rights of panhandlers. But I believe there's been a serious spike in panhandling in this city. And they're in walking in the streets of this city, talking to many business people, talking to people in general. There have been many stories about aggressive behavior of the panhandlers, whether it's in front of coffee shops, stores, bank parking lots, intersections. So I'd like to ask the city manager, working with the law department and the police department, to review the latest regulations concerning rulings from the court and see if they can come up with a plan or an action to deal with this subject. You know, thinking back as high school headmaster, if there were 5 or 6 students standing in front of a store in the downtown, truthfully, I was called many times to send our security down there to clear them out of the doorway. And all they were doing was literally just standing in the doorway. But this is about people now standing in the doorway, interfering with people trying to get a cup of coffee or a sandwich, or an elderly couple walking down the street and being put upon, or a business person walking down with a client and being put upon. This can't happen. If people want to give to panhandlers, I really think that we have so many great organizations in this city, such as Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, many others. I would say, rather than give to any panhandler, give it to an organization that can reach out and help these people. But I do believe that if the councilors, such as Councilor Belanger and the Economic Development Committee, if they're going to try to sell this city, this is something that does not help selling the city. And I know that the panhandlers have rights, but so does an elderly couple walking down the street. So doesn't a young mother with their daughter have rights. We talk about rights, but we really should talk about the rights of everyone to feel safe. And again, I'll repeat, the stories of the aggressive behavior, and I think many of us have faced that, must be dealt with. And so I'd like to see if I know, it's not an easy thing to do, and I know the city manager has been on top of this. I know that Chief Taylor has been on top of this, but if he needs more resources, if because of other issues that were mentioned about the shootings, people are concerned about that. Yes, we did put on 5 officers, but maybe it's 10. There are other issues, but we need to make sure that the safety of everyone in this city is a major concern, and I know it's the major concern of everybody here. But if we have to do that little extra, whatever it is, Mr. Manager, please advise.
Thank you, Council Maris. Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a good motion by Councilor Samaras, and Councilor, your intuition serves you correct. This panhandling issue is once again far beyond nuisance levels. The city council prior to me did address the issue. We crafted an ordinance, was then passed and then amended, and then this SJC, I believe, changed their minds. The state Supreme Judicial Court changed their ruling, so to speak. When the state, they can't make up their mind, that makes things much more difficult for cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth. But it is a problem. And we hear of their rights of freedom of speech, but as Councilor Samaras stated, what about the rights of business owners, customers, tourists, residents? Go ahead.
Council, we have a pending case, so solicitor wanted to just provide some information.
Okay.
We have a pending legal case against the city. Madam Solicitor.
Go ahead.
I apologize for interrupting. And as far as the instances, those are things that certainly can continue to be talked about in this forum and brought to light. And I think it's helpful to continue to better understand the problem and the scope of it. But perhaps when discussion has concluded, maybe this matter could just be referred to the executive session that's already scheduled, just for a quick update as to where we are. There are a couple of cases that came down. We are awaiting a decision from the court, and I can fill the council in as to where we are. Obviously, once the ordinance was challenged, the city was not in a position to begin enforcing it, and so everything right now has been on hold.
Councilor Belanger.
Okay, well, I'll just narrow my comments down to, to you, to the solicitor. All we're looking for is a tool here to move these people along. I mean, it's not economical to incarcerate these people. It's not legal to put them, I get it. That's not our goal, to issue a fine. Just something that moves them along and stops them from being nuisances to the walkers, employees, residents, tourists, if you will, in the downtown. It's not fair to them. These people have rights too, and these who we need to stick up for. So I'll stop right there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councilor Leahy.
I just want to say that that's all we hear about. It's the aggressive behavior that everybody's tired of, and that's what we want to deal with, and we'll get an update tonight, but, it's getting worse again. People are just too aggressive going after bystanders, walking by, trying to enjoy the city. So that's what we're trying to deal with.
Thank you, Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to make a quick comment that, as Councilor Samaras alluded to earlier, when it spoke on the motion, that this is a result of our social services in the city, okay? We're the only ones doing anything in the region to address homelessness, drug addiction. We have the homeless shelters. We have the group homes. We have the day shelters. We have the living waters. This is an end result of that. This is what we get for hosting and we're a city where social services are needed and required. I understand that. But this seems to be where the region is flocking to for social services, and this is growing. The people are coming for our services, and this problem is getting bigger and bigger. So I think we need to, within the scope of the law, when we do get a ruling, come up with the harshest ruling on this as possible to prevent this from getting out of control. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Marcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In relationship to this particular motion, which I know we have to watch what we say because we may violate the perpetrators, and God knows we don't want to do that. And having said that, I received a call from a few people who used to take a delight in passing a little bit of the time of day by sitting on a bench and just watching the traffic go by and daydreaming and having a cup of coffee that they just bought in one of the establishments downtown. and because the obnoxious thug that gathers and creates havoc spoiled it, the bench is gone. Isn't that a shame? That is what's happening to society and our people. The good people are becoming prisoners again, cannot enjoy their freedom of enjoyment by sitting on a bench, minding their business, having a cup of coffee, and once again, we remove a bench because those that are vicious and obnoxious and loud and, you know, it's just so frustrating to see society going that route. I thought we had police in the downtown. I know there's phones today that people in establishments could place a phone call and have the police go down and enforce the do not loiter ordinance. You know, there's ordinances in place already that you could utilize to get these people to move along. That's the law. We could do that. We got to find a way to circumvent the laws that we can't touch because of the American Civil Liberties Union and protecting the, you know, you can't even protect your property anymore. The person that comes in and robs you, God forbid, you should run out of the house and let them do that, because what is happening to this world that I can't accept it. I really can't, but I'm frustrated by it. I see that. I know we can't say this and we can't do that, and we got to shove all the good people back in the house and take everything away from them because everybody that is vicious has rights. I don't know what's going on with this world, but I'm sorry to have to say it.
Oh, that's your opinion. Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion, I just want to weigh in. I do agree, Mr. Manager, we probably need a little bit more enforcement. I was downtown having dinner Saturday night, and as soon as I pulled into a parking spot, a gentleman came. I mean, we're rolling the window up, and he was bold enough to knock on the window. He was on my wife's side, so it's just not a good thing. They're getting pretty brazen, and it's kind of a scam that was actually in the newspaper. So I think it's a good motion, and we need to step up enforcement. So the motion was to refer this item to executive session. Oh, well, I'll entertain a motion to refer this motion to
All right,
executive
at
session.
this point, but I would still like at some point after we receive that information, if the manager could obtain some type of working plan on how to deal with this. We just have to be creative about this. But Councilor Mercia is correct. I was going to talk about that bench that was moved, but it seems sometimes to solve a problem, we eliminate something that helps somebody else. That's not the way to solve a problem. We have to deal with it. Thank you.
Okay, motion by Council Samaras, second by Council Kennedy. Refer this to executive session. Have the manager report back later with the plan. Council Kennedy?
Thank you, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, it seems that there could be more police officers walking around downtown than what there is. And on times when I'm downtown, sometimes I don't see any at all. And so even if they were just walking around and getting people to move around, that would really probably take care of a lot of what everybody's talking about here, if that happened downtown. And I guess I thought that was one of the things that we were going to get with the 5 more police officers, but we don't seem to be getting that. And so maybe that's, maybe there could be the police chief could think about a redeployment that would put more officers in the downtown, at least in those, when the restaurants are open and so forth and so on, but probably most parts of the day. There just doesn't seem to be the police presence that you would like to see downtown on a regular basis.
Thank you, Council. All those in favor of the motion signify. Roll call if it's going to executive session.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Okay, next motion of the evening by Council Samaras. Request city manager outline rules and regulations pertaining to use of bikes and skateboards on city sidewalks.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott.
Second by Council Rourke. Council Samaras?
Thank you. maybe it's my age, but walking downtown should not be a challenge. And I think we need an update on the current rules and regulations pertaining to young people with bikes on sidewalks and the rollerbladers. Actually, I was going to cite something else, but just tonight, coming to this meeting, as I went through County Square, as the light changed to green, I could see out of the corner of my eye a young man driving his bike very fast, maybe he's about 11 years old, on the sidewalk, went across the street in front of me. If I just proceeded with the green light, would have hit him, and up towards Bridge Street. I went through the next light, going by the Mambo Grill. There were two women ready to go by the seats that are out in front of those stores. And if they hadn't seen two young men coming down very fast on a bike, they would have got hurt because they would have been in a narrow walkway with the bikers coming down. And just as I parked my car by City Hall, a young man went from Market Street, crossed on his bike very fast towards City Hall. If you're a person walking down the street and you're on a cell phone, how many people are on cell phones and you're sometimes not paying attention? You could be talking and just turn to the left when there's an expectation. You might have turned to the right. You can be hurt. I've talked to many people who've talked about walking out of stores and almost getting hit. So I don't know whether we can mandate that bikers in the downtown, if you have your bike and you're on the sidewalk, you have to walk the bike. Regarding rollerbladers, if you look at Kerouac Park and some of the monuments in the city that are being damaged because of this. Rollerblades, we don't want to discourage that. We don't want to discourage the youth riding bikes or using rollerblades, but there's an appropriate place. The sidewalks of the downtown of Lowell are not the appropriate place. So if we could have some type of understanding what the rulings are, and again, another issue. Again, might be my age, but I think it's a concern of everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Leahy? I'm sorry, Council Belanger had his hand up, and then Council Leahy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councilor Samaras, Councilor, no, it's not your age, my friend. It's not your age. It's a problem, and it's rampant. Just tonight, I am renovating. I went to my establishment right before coming here at 6 o'clock. My contractor got skimmed by a bike, three street kids going, I mean, real fast, knocked his tools out of his hand. He was furious, quite frankly. And I'm not going to lie, I raised my voice at these kids, okay? They were flying down the sidewalk. These bikes and skateboards don't belong on downtown sidewalks. If we can get the bikes in the bike lanes and the sidewalks in one of our four skateboard parks throughout the city, we'll be all set. That the city spent a lot of resources to get these kids somewhere to go so they could use their skateboards, okay? That we have facilities for them. Downtown is not the intended use of a skateboard or bicycles, but it is a problem. I've seen families with children have to, blockade themselves against a building to make way for these people on bikes. I've seen it numerous times, and it is a problem. And I don't think there's so much as one sign throughout the downtown that I'm aware of that says no bikes or skateboards on sidewalks. Maybe we start with that. I don't know what's exactly in place for an ordinance, but through this motion response, I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of this and get a little tighter on this, because it is a problem. It's a problem. These kids are all coming downtown to hang out. They're more or less showing off, if you will. They're going up and down with skateboards and sidewalks. I see it, and something's got to be done. Again, another instrument so the police officers can move these kids along and get them off the sidewalk. So it is a problem, and I look forward to the motion response. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Council Leahy?
Thank you. All this discussion is true. What I was going to ask too, with the conversion of the two-way traffic, I didn't know if we had extra police that was supposed to be down there, or spotters from the engineer's office or something. It's just, all this comes at once. So you've got the people on bicycles, the skateboarders, and then on Merrimack Street, we get all the people who aren't supposed to be turning left, taking lefts. So I don't know if we can combine it with the traffic transformation, but that might help and might give us an accurate picture Because today alone, you know, with the bicyclists, it's just everybody taking a left down Kirk and John Street and Bridge Street where it's posted, but, you know, so we just got a lot of things going on.
Mr. Manager?
Rest assured, we all took a walk downtown, and I witnessed a lot of things that's going to be on the list tomorrow with the superintendent of police. And these are on the list, believe me. That in the foul language that is used in downtown.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Next motion of the evening by Council Samaras, request city manager facilitate a meeting between the Historic Board and downtown business leaders in order to discuss issues concerning both.
Second.
Second by Council Milonazo. Council Samaras?
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. First, before I talk about this motion, I really want to acknowledge the good work of the Historic Commission. I mean, I come from a time when I saw Cherry and Webb's, the original building, decorated with a pink plastic or glass, watched Beaumarchais covered with things that talked about modernizing the buildings, watched a lot of the row houses that would have, if they were still around, would have been very significant apartments or condos in this city lost. So the Historic Board has done a lot has helped this city out a lot. But the purpose of my motion is to ask the city manager or his designee to talk to members of the Historic Commission or to the chair of the Historic Commission, along with business leaders, about issues that are common to both sides. If we're going to have good economic development, there has to be some agreement. I've talked to a number of business people, and there are some that truthfully would not want to talk before this group because they wouldn't want to be seen as someone in opposition to historic preservation. But I think in some cases, some of the decisions that have been made might appear to be, we'll say, arbitrary or capricious in a sense of when a decision is made as to what they can do to the building or not do to the building, sometimes it's difficult to understand that decision that's made. And quite often, in some cases, it may take a year once the decision's been made to come up with another request to make certain changes. What I'm asking for is to ensure that we have good communication between the Historic Commission and what it attempts to do, and with our builders and our business people with what they're trying to do. I think what we need to make sure is that we have good communication and resolution to some issues which really should be resolvable. I mean, because it's a lot of these things are opinion. As I say, I'm not talking about the old days when Cherry and Webb was covered with plastic or Beaumarchais was done, but the idea of the size of a sign or those businesses that do comply or seem to comply with everything, and then we have those businesses that don't seem to comply with anything. And yes, we know there are letters or they've been asked to comply, but it seems that there are those who comply completely and those who do not comply at all. So it's more at this point of getting a lot of good people together to ensure there's good communication and there's resolution to sometimes simple issues. I'm not talking about major construction ideas, but simple issues regarding colors of paint, sizes of signs, or things like that. So if we could have some type of, information about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Council Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a good motion, one which I will support. I will give the council an example, although I did not get called on this personally, but I did hear about it from a third party, that the owner of Sweet Lydia's, which is a new business in the downtown, put a sidewalk signboard out on the sidewalk on Merrimack Street. And there's been a couple of others that have done that. And I was told that her business increased by 15% just in the day or so. And within 2 days, the Historic Board administrator went down there and told her to remove the sign because he said it was not in compliance with historic standards in downtown Lowell. If you look at Council Belanger's motion regarding 43 Market Street, I mean, this is a building that's been basically demolished by neglect. And where has, in my opinion, the historic board and the historic folks been on that building? So they can't really pick on, in my opinion, a new business who's trying to get going. She does have a sign, an overhanging sign, but people tend to look straight or look down on the sidewalk, but when they do see the signboard on the sidewalk, they were going into her store. And yet she was told to remove the sign. So I think this is a good motion. I think it's important that the historic folks communicate with the businesses in the downtown, because it really is about economic development and try to bring back a vibrant downtown. So I support the motion.
Thank you, Council. Council Belanger.
Thank you,
Council
Mr. Mayor.
Kennedy.
I think it's a good motion as well. You know, to echo my colleagues' comments, you know, being familiar with the business owners and the type of businesses downtown, right, they look at, you know, I can't put a sandwich board or use this paint color or put this sign, but the building, 3 buildings down, can totally neglect their building and they're left alone. So that is their sentiment, and that's what we need to work out here. Now, I commend and appreciate what the Historic Board does. We're a city that's rich in history, and we need to preserve that. We have the national park in our city, and we don't want to jeopardize that in any case. However, you know, when these guidelines add additional strain, if you will, on businesses, that's a problem. I mean, things are bad enough out there as it is. I'm not saying let businesses do what they want. But nonetheless, this has to be looked at. What is allowed? What can be allowed? There should be exceptions to every rule. I mean, we'll adhere to them to the best of our ability, but, you know, I've gotten calls on a building on Market Street that Mr. Kazanjian's trying to develop, and the numbers don't work. Certain buildings need to come down. There's an economics point, you know, on a larger picture. There's an economics to each project that it's not feasible to fix up this existing shell. I'm not going to profit. I'm not going to make money. So nonetheless, it's been this way for 5-10 years. So I think, and that's one that just stands out. I mean, there's a lot of good going on here, but I'll give you another example. The two-way traffic we converted to in downtown. It's going great. I can tell you firsthand, I've been out there for several hours in the street. You'd think it's been this way for years. The only issue was Shattuck Street, because it's a narrow street. So I in turn saw Eric Eby, the traffic engineer, on the street yesterday. And he had mention of that. And I says, I'm witnessing the same thing. I said, why do we have 2 feet wide barrels as a meridian on a street that's already too narrow as it is? And he's in turn, well, the historic board won't allow us to put a solid yellow line on Shattuck Street. So I'm sorry, that raises an eyebrow now, because things are going really good. I think motorists are really accessing the downtown much easier now. And in no way am I going to support taking away that lane of on-street parking on Shattuck Street to support two-way traffic. We can't afford it, quite frankly. Parking is difficult enough down there. I'm in no way going to support losing a lane of on-street parking to support this two-way. So I'd like to see it work, but there needs to be exceptions to every rule. So I think this is a good motion, one worthy, I think, of all our engagement here to move the city forward while preserving our heritage. But in some cases, our guidelines are impediments, if you will, on economic development, and it can be a problem. So I think this is an issue well worthy of a full-fledged discussion. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council Belanger. Council Mercer, then Council Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to the two-way on Shattuck Street, I'm not for that either, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely not. It's too congested to be two-way. The barrels in the middle. Buses are scraping themselves because it's so narrow. Fire trucks cannot make the turn. It's a safety hazard, and I don't support it. You can't put a line on the the rocks, the cobblestone. Absolutely should not be two-way. That's my opinion. I agree with that.
Thank you, Council. Council Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually think
Council
so.
Smash.
I think it's an outstanding motion on Council Sabar's part. I would like to see maybe the manager and DPD, Ms. Tragg, get involved as well to tell us where the city is coming from on issues like this. I, like Council Monazo and Council Belanger, have heard from downtown business owners, sometimes their frustration, and again, not to hop on any one commission or agency, but I think that the more involvement with city officials would definitely help in this matter. And hopefully that can be done, sooner rather than later. Understanding that, being downtown every day for work and walking around, you do hear from the business owners down there that there will hopefully see some sort of compromise on issues like this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. Council Samaras.
Thank you. And thank you for the support. I really think that another possibility is to ask Diane Trad and her department to maybe talk informally to some of the business leaders in the downtown. I think in some cases, I was very careful not to mention too many examples because people really did not want, we'll say, their names or their company brought up saying that they were complaining because they acknowledged the good work of the Historic Commission. So perhaps by sending some of your people down to informally talk with some of the people on some of the general issues, and perhaps maybe having the Lowell Plan Chamber of Commerce represent some of these business leaders to talk about, in general, some of their overall concerns. I think all of this is solvable, but as Councilor Milanazzo talked about, you put out a sign and it increases your business by 15%, and you're told to put it away. I mean, that's counter to what we're trying to do as a city council. So I think there have been many good suggestions made by my fellow councilors, and I think we're on the right road if this action is taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Kennedy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think this is an excellent motion. I think that since 1978, since we've had the national park, that the national park has had a major influence over the environment downtown, and it will continue to have a major influence over the environment of downtown. And I think to the extent that that we can have a conversation between those people that are interested in the historical environment of the downtown and those people that have an economic interest in what happens downtown, that it can only be a good thing. And I think that that this is an excellent motion, and that these discussions can only be helpful in what happens with the downtown in the future.
Thank you, Council. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Next motion of the evening by Councilor Mercier. Request city manager contact State Region 4 to find ways and means to make safe the crossing area on Rogers Street in front of Rogers Hall, perhaps with a blinking stoplight. Seconded by Councilor Milanazzo. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we'd like to take Councilor Belanger's motion up at the same time because he has a similar motion on 12.6.
No objection. We'll take up the same motion. Motion 12.6, Council Belanger requests city manager work with traffic engineer to upgrade crosswalk located at 196 Rogers Street. Seconded by Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I brought this motion forward out of concern for the safety of the residents and neighbors of the Fort Hill area, in particular Rogers Hall, and the many people who like to cross that busy street and sit and enjoy the beauty of the park across the street, being Fort Hill Park. When anyone tries to take a shot at crossing that busy stretch of 110, it's like trying to cross a speedway, and one often takes their life in their hands, as was quite evident last week when a 73-year-old gentleman was struck by a car which left him with multiple serious injuries, 2 broken legs, and he was placed in an induced coma. I was under the belief that that stretch of roadway was governed by the state, but I learned that it's under the jurisdiction of the city. My main goal in an ideal situation would be to place a crossing light for people oppressed so that cars would stop and people could cross safely, but I know that it's very, very expensive. I also know that 2 other people in other parts of the city were also struck by cars while trying to cross busy streets as well, and they are just important as well as anybody else. but I'm particularly concerned about this particular area where we do have a elderly housing right there with the people that like to go across the street. So in the interim, I would like the sign shop to put up 2 signs, one on each side of Rogers Street, well before the crosswalk to the park, informing drivers that you are about to approach a crosswalk. The sign should say, "Yield to pedestrians ahead." I'm glad to be sharing this motion with my colleague Corey Belanger, who would be surprised that I know it took him 15 minutes to cross the street so that he could walk his dog in the park. Although a long wait, thankfully he made it across the street safely. I'd like to refer this motion to the traffic engineer and hopefully refer this motion to the sign shop. I don't want the signs on each side of the crosswalk. That's too late. I like them placed further back on each side of the street so that people, if they're noticing there's a crosswalk up ahead and elderly people may be crossing, or even my young colleague that is an elderly, Councilor Belanger, to walk his dog, but many people cross to go to that. And if you know, coming down from Rogers Street, there's a curve, and a very dangerous curve that you're right, more or less, going to be too late to stop. So I just think that's important in the meantime to get signage there. Thank you.
Okay, motion by Council Mercy to send this to the traffic engineer. Second by Council Rourke. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. We'll go to Council Belanger's motion. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I definitely, I still can't get this out of my mind. When I came out of my front door last Wednesday and seen this man on the street clinging to his life. And I had previous conversation about how dangerous it was there, but never in a million years did I think I'd see something like that. So all I know is something needs to be done here. And the emphasis, I think, is coming, as you're coming from Lawrence Street, going up the hill, it bends, you're going up a hill, and the crosswalk comes on you really, really fast. Not to mention on a bright sunny morning such as this one, the glare, and you've got a perfect storm of events there that are not conducive to a safe environment. So I think the emphasis needs to be certainly coming from the Lawrence Street, going up towards the park, because my concern is, I appreciate my colleagues' concern, but Council, I'll be okay. It's our elderly residents who live at Rogers Hall, who aren't as mobile, deserve better, deserve more, quite frankly. So let's see if we can do something for them. It's city-owned. I know there was some confusion. It might have been in the state's hands, but it's not. And frankly, I like it better that way, so that we don't have to wait. So if we can refer this to the traffic engineer to get some more awareness, some better signage, so that something like this doesn't happen again. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council Belanger. Council Leahy.
Thank you. I checked out that area because I heard of the accident. I mean, the crosswalk is painted, but maybe, again, other crosswalks in the city that we're going to try to brighten up, maybe that might be a good place to put, some color in between the white paint. I don't know, the signs will certainly help. But I wonder also if, where there's accidents on crosswalks, I wonder if you can get, you'll like this one, Mr. Manager, maybe we can charge the insurance companies of these people who hit people and have them pay for the lights. Because I know they're quite costly to the city, but, charge them the $70,000 that it costs to put up these crosswalks, and it'll make people think twice when they're speeding in our streets and they're running people over. So we can have the law department work on that one.
Further discussion on Council Belanger's motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Next motion of the evening by Council Kennedy. Request City Council endorse solution of the Greater Lowell Vocational School Board regarding one man, one vote principle of representation. Second by Council Leahy. Council Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recently, the Regional Vocational Technical High School Board took a vote to endorse having the board have weighted votes. And so that's what this motion has to do with. However, the law department has asked that, that the motion be referred to closed session, so I would just make that, motion.
Motion by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council Belanger, that this motion be referred to executive session. Roll call. Pardon me? It is part of the executive session vote. Okay. So, Clerk, Mr. Clerk, do you want a roll call on that, or?
I think the roll call could wait until the executive session, because
Okay.
that item is included in the language in that roll call.
Okay.
And the mayor will address that.
Okay, so the motion was made and seconded.
Mr. Mayor, then I guess I would move to table the motion until after the executive session.
Okay, motion by Council Kennedy to table the motion, seconded by Councilor Belanger. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed. That motion carries till after the executive session. Moving on, we did 12.6. Moving on to 12.7, we have another motion by Council Belanger. Request city manager have law department explore the possibility of an eminent domain taking of the dilapidated property located at 43 Market Street. Seconded by Council Mercier. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're all familiar with this building, and for those viewers at home, it's the one on Market Street, nearer to the post office. It's signage that says furniture. It's got all kinds of junk, broken windows, you name it. It looks absolutely awful, awful. And it's been this way for as long as I've been downtown, 15 years at least. And we seem to have gotten nowhere with this owner. After several threats, fines, he still continues to be negligent. You know, rumor has it that a deal in the past, sales were imminent, never happened. I'm hearing it again. I don't know. There's rumors of a restaurant trying to go in there. I really don't know what's true, what isn't. But what I do know is this man is very unrealistic in his price. So I don't know if this sale is imminent realistically, but I want to know what the city can do to get this man to sell his building or to do something with it. It's gone on long enough, and we spoke of historic, and this, no, all eyes should have been on this building, this owner, for a long time ago. But nonetheless, let's look forward from here and see what to do about the problem. But nonetheless, I don't see how we can tolerate this any longer. I know recently, city officials, just to name a few, finally got a hold of an agent of the building, and they wanted to meet them prior to the folk festival, and a city official was going to pay and take the time to paper up the windows just to make it hide all the junk inside. The agent agreed and then never showed up at the meeting on Saturday, so to let the city worker in to cover the windows. Okay, that's just one. After several conversations that I'm hearing, DPD was doing a good job trying to work with this guy. Everybody's tried working with him. Basically his take on it is, well, when it sells, the new owner will fix it up. So that's what he thinks. So if that wants to be his attitude, what can the city, I mean, I don't know if we can go that far as eminent takings, Mr. Manager, but what can we do to put some pressure on this guy? This has gone on long. It's not fair to Brood Awakening, to Persona, those stores that will look good down that end, who have done the right thing. It's not fair to them. So we've got to do something. I don't know what tools are at our disposal at this point, but whatever we can do within the parameters of the law, we need to put pressure on this individual. That's my message. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. Mr. Manager?
I sent an email to the city council this afternoon relative an update on the possible purchase of this property, and I just ask you to refer to that email as to what we have learned as of this date, and rest assured we will stay right on top of this issue. I've walked by this building a number of times, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and we're keeping the pressure on and make sure that this is either sold or brought up to code or at least aesthetically more pleasing in the front.
Okay, I think we mean business this time, Mr. Manager. Okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Milazzo?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a good motion. I don't know if my colleague, Council Belanger, would be willing to amend the motion to just remove the words of possibility of eminent domain. I just don't know if a public body like this, talking about eminent domain, it could tantamount to a pro tanto taking. I don't know if it would or wouldn't, probably not. But at the end of the day, I don't know if we can say what Council Belanger just said, all means that, we could put in order to make sure the building gets, brought up to code and sold, for that matter. I just would caution my colleagues on the eminent domain language, but maybe I'm being overly
The
sensitive.
manager?
I understand what you're saying, but I don't see the possibility of eminent domain, but certainly something short of that to make
Okay.
sure that they comply with the code.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We do have a minimum maintenance
Correct.
ordinance, right, that we can enforce? Mr. Manager?
Correct. And the biggest problem is just this person returning our phone calls.
Okay.
So now if they don't have this purchase of the property, we're going to take the more drastic measures relative to the building.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
All set, council? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed. Motion passes. Next motion of the evening by Councilor Belanger requests city manager update council regarding alleged noncompliance of the newly relocated methadone clinic. Second by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Belanger?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The methadone clinic has only been there, I believe this is the third week, and we have, business owners in the area, frankly, up in arms of what's gone on there since their arrival, and they were my biggest fears while on the ZBA, and that's why I did not support this petition. Due to the obscurity of this location, was too far for these patients to access. Many of them are on foot. I stress that time and time again. But nonetheless, it did go through in the end, and all these problems have seemed to have surfaced. So, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager, can you please look into these alleged, I received a video today of a gentleman urinating in the bushes right on Stedman Street. There's been reports of them walking up in the street with no sidewalks, which was a big concern of mine while on the ZBA. How are they going to access the facility? Let's talk about in January when there's snowbanks, how are these people going to walk up this street? I've only seen the video of the gentleman urinating, Mr. Manager. I don't have facts for the rest. I have lots of complaints that I believe have merit, but if you could please investigate these and see if they are in compliance at a new location. They were supposed to allocate money for sidewalks if it did become an issue. So I'd like to know where we are with all this. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Manager, we also have a similar motion by Councilor Leahy, but we'll take that one up separately. Yeah. Mr.
Just
Manager?
briefly, so you know what we've been doing, approximately 10 days ago, probably two weeks ago, is that I had the building department go up and monitor the activities that were being complained of, and our building department confirmed what was going on up there. I've also viewed the videos that you're talking about and more. I've viewed photographs. I've talked to the business owners up there. So approximately 10 days ago, I had our developmental services department deliver a notice to the owner and their lawyer that we considered the operation of that facility to be a public nuisance and a public safety issue, and we would be monitoring that operation in the next days to make sure that they abated that public nuisance and the public safety issue. It's come to my attention that they have not abated that issue. It continues to be a problem. So yesterday, I had our developmental services hand-deliver notice to the owner of the facility and their lawyer that they had 48 hours to correct the issues surrounding their operation. Otherwise, we would void their certificate of occupancy and they would no longer be able to operate at the premises. So we are taking this very seriously, If it isn't abated by tomorrow afternoon, then we will be taking more drastic action to stop the public nuisance and public safety issue that's going on right now there.
It's a very quick response. Thank you very much, Mr. Manager.
For discussion, Council Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just another question. I know in the ZBA's decision, it stated that they would work with the company, with the clinic would work with the LRTA, designing a bus stop to get up there. Maybe I'm incorrect, but I thought under the agreement that there'd be at least an agreement in place between the LRTA and the company owning the clinic to get something, at least in writing or in wording, that would be done to alleviate the walk up and down Stedman Street.
The decision, as I read it, is that the petitioner would seek that a bus route be established there, but there was no mandatory language in the decision that it be established. And it was the petitioner's obligation to work with the LRTA and attempt to bring one there, but that hasn't happened. That's another issue that we have with the petitioner. Also, as it comes to sidewalks, the decision doesn't say that that they have to construct sidewalks. Unfortunately, it only says is that they have to give us $20,000 if they don't, if they have that problem with pedestrians in the street. Well, $20,000 is going to get you about a sidewalk from here to the back of the chamber.
No, I believe it'll cost about $600,000 for a length of sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah.
So the issue about getting $20,000 for sidewalks doesn't impress me as much as us saying it's a public nuisance and a public safety issue, and therefore we're going to invalidate their certificate of occupancy.
Council Rourke?
Is the one they have now, the occupancy cert, is that temporary or is that?
No, it's temporary because one of the abutters has appealed the decision to the Superior Court, but the legislature in recent years passed a law saying that that didn't stay the operation or the right to build under a special permit of variance. You can still go forward, but it's at your own peril. So that's why it's called a temporary certificate of occupancy, because if they lose the lawsuit, then they will never get a permanent certificate of occupancy.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Last motion of the evening, Council Leahy requests city manager report to the council regarding opening of methadone clinic. Second by Council Belanger. Council Leahy.
Thank you. Enough said on this. It sounds like you got a handle on it, and obviously it is a nuisance, and I see you staying right on top of it. Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion passes. Last motion of the evening on City Council executive session. Executive session regarding matters of pending litigation relative to Greater Lowell Regional Vocational School, workers' compensation cases, other injured on duty cases, and claims brought by Diane Cludier. Public discussion which could have a detrimental effect on the city's position. Body will, it is the wish of the body to adjourn from executive session following the executive session. Motion by Council Mercier, second by Council Rourke. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercier.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Yeas. Motion passes. Council will go into executive session.